Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Live means live. Good evening. I'm your host, Ed McQueen, for today's program of the World Community Magazine, live. We're coming to you live. Our co-host, Miss April Garner, of course. She just left the room just a little bit, but she's coming back. We want you to be very cautious today. We thought this virus was kind of laying low for a while, but we're finding new statistics that are coming out, and it's just something to be mindful of that needs to be shared with you also to make sure that you don't take it for granted. Okay, so let's get things started here. Today, we're going as promotion showed you, we have a very interesting gentleman who was with us before regarding some statistics that he wanted to share, and he's been doing a lot of research on that and compiling some statistics that he has gotten from various places like DHEC and various other places, to name a few, I guess. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Mr. Dave Wilson. He's of Dave Wilson Consulting Services. And guess what? They're right here in Little River. Mighty Little River. Good afternoon, Mr. Wilson.
Good afternoon, Edward. How are you?
I'm doing great. And man, we couldn't wait to have you back on the program. You keep giving us some good statistics that you're compiling. You're doing your hard work, and I hope everybody's appreciating that, because it's nothing better than an informed decision for people, right?
That's correct.
So, Ms. Wilson, a lot of people may not know you. Do you mind just sharing a little background of yourself, just to make them aware of who you are, and so forth. So.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm a 5th-generation native of Horry County, South Carolina. My great grandfather was released from captivity here in Horry County at 1865. And after I attended all segregated schools from 1st grade through 12th grade, what we call the dual education system here in Horry County. Started with the Rosenwald schools, and ultimately the so-called South Carolina equalization schools. I graduated from high school and joined the Army, served in Vietnam. After Vietnam, I returned back to South Carolina for a few months, and then went up to New York and attended college and earned degrees up there. And I worked with, we got married during that period of time, and worked with IBM, General Electric, and Honeywell, combined about 35 years, and returned back to South Carolina many years ago after retirement or semi-retirement, and started doing a lot. Well, during my engineering career, of course, I did a lot of teaching part-time in mathematics and statistics, and also I worked in the area of statistical analysis, reliability engineering during my career with IBM and the other companies. So I had took the statistical background from the product and applied it to other things such as COVID and test scores and those type things. So that's pretty much my background. I run Wilson Consulting Services as a part-time type of job, and I do a lot of research on things such as the Electoral College and population growth since 1670, when the state of South Carolina was first settled, and all the way up to the present. So now I'm kind of a part-time person, dealing with consulting and writing family history books and so forth and so on.
So we should be lucky that we've got you in the neighborhood. I mean, in Horry County, man. I mean, with those kind of that kind of experience and skills. And as we move forward, I just want to continue to give you credit on that. The before we get into your compilation of statistics which you want to share with the audience, I just wanted to ask before I forget. I didn't write it down either. Do you get called on a lot locally or statewide or nationally for your services like that, or is that?
Well, I have one thing that I've done lately, kind of in the background, is help doctoral students with their dissertations. Chapter 4, if anybody familiar with the dissertation, is where you really have to defend your dissertation. Yep. You do that with data assistance and work with a lot of stuff. So that's one thing, and also not a whole lot. I'm part-time. I don't do a whole lot of. Other words, I turn down a lot of stuff. Actually,
that means that your credentials were
when you're part-time, you're not trying to make a living off it.
Right.
So you kind of gravitate towards things that you enjoy mostly, and working with students and things like what you see I'm doing now.
Well, all right. Look,
not in it for the money per se. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Really, it's good to know. So, we're anxious to, as I know I'm anxious to get into your latest compilation of statistics, which I think hopefully will catch everybody's attention. It certainly caught mine. And it's the title of it is called "A Look at COVID-19 as a Stochastic Virus."
Right.
Now, first, before we really get into it, not that everybody is not schooled enough, but when you look at the word stochastic as opposed to another statistic analysis, one begins to ask the question, why stochastic, or what does that mean? I think a good definition would start us off very good.
Yeah, a good definition of, kind of a very simplified definition is random. The randomness of it is it's like a random variable.
Right.
And other words, it's when you cannot objectively determine how something is happening, what caused it. It has become a random variable. It has sort of a mind of its own. And if you apply that to what we've seen in COVID over the last 3 years, it is a stochastic type of behavior. And that's why you'll see some of the charts that I have that is jumping all over the place. Now, to give you kind of a real one example I use, and some other people use it too. A stochastic process is a non-deterministic type of process, and a direct, a non-random, which is a probability. You have some idea on what the outcome is going to. You know, in the beginning when they had these wild predictions on where COVID was going. I mean, there was some scary stuff out there.
Right.
They were using some stochastic processes in advance of statistics. They were using some of those models, but it's hard to try to predict something that is stochastic in nature because it is bouncing all over the place. Now, one example, let me see if I can simplify that in terms of stochastic. If you look at all the religions, say, in the world, there's no objective way to determine which religion is the best or more or whatever. You know, even though individuals will try to say my religion is better than yours. But religion, the number of religions is a stochastic type of process. Now, if you take Christianity alone, that is not necessarily a stochastic process because you can go back and objectively determine where Christianity began. Because we had a historic figure here about 2,000 years ago. So we really know pretty much. So even though it's a religion, it's not a stochastic type of outcome there because we can objectively determine that there was a historic figure named Jesus Christ that was here 2,000 years ago. So that one, in my paper I use the word deterministic and non-deterministic, and COVID is definitely a non-deterministic process. Now, a lot of mathematicians around the world, that's what they have used to try to calculate it. Some very advanced stochastic process, such as Markov chain and other things of that nature, struggling with it, and that's why we still struggle with the projections of it today. But it's random. It's like somebody with no control.
Okay. I'll give you my opinion on that. I always had issues with I used to call it stochastic anyway, from even not in grad school, but in undergrad.
Mhm.
But we were just pronouncing it differently. But I've always had doubts about it. So it's a little bit of doubt. Okay. But a lot of it turned out to be very, very useful. It's
Mhm.
depending on the conditions. Yeah. So in that regard, I kind of kept it in reserve.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
application. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So just a little bit of your compilation in your report. You have some charts, and I know you want to put some charts up, but I think you're going to probably have to verbalize quite a bit more to the charts that you
Yes.
want to present us. Okay, I mean, we'll know that the y-axis and the x-axis that will be shown, but it may require you to kind of talk a bit more on it. And at some point, I probably want to jump in and because I have a few questions myself, okay, about because I read your executive summary quite well, and that to me that prompted some questions that maybe I thought the viewers would probably know. But you can go ahead now and if you want to give us a little summary of your report.
Okay. So you want to just talk about the summary?
Yeah, and well, and we're gonna be having some comments, hopefully some comments coming in. But I would I first wanted to know, and I didn't ask you before the program, but what kind of criticism? I guess you probably should go over the summary first, but I want to know what kind of criticism you are receiving from general audience or organizations of notoriety that you in the area, if you did
Actually,
receive any at all.
to be frank with you, my report basically confirms reports out of Johns Hopkins University, George Mason University, and virtually all the studies where people are really, I should say, upfront about the data and what it is
Yeah,
doing,
yeah,
because this is all of South Carolina data from South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. They have a lot of charts out there on on their website, but I just took their data and ran it through through a lot of statistical analysis and made
right.
graphs so people could understand what it was. But basically, it confirms what a lot of places say. For example, George Mason University did a research today recently where they looked at a lot of data in states that was really locked down, or say big cities that were locked down and wearing masks, and also with the vaccine. Well, you look at the ones that were not as locked down as the other ones, and there was no statistical difference. And if you look at California and Florida, Florida was kind of a more loose. California was locked down to the teeth. There's no statistical difference between the spread of the virus, and in terms of mask or no mask. In the state of South Carolina, with all the data, they may not publish it, but there's no difference between the spread of the virus with since they had the vaccine and before the vaccine. This just statistical. This is scientific now, not what people think. This is scientific using South Carolina DHEC data itself, and that's what is in the graphs. Now you may see the graphs bouncing, and of course, the older people, we knew that, die at a much higher rate, at least in some cases 17 times that of, say, somebody in the age bracket of 18 to 49.
Well, that kind of information should help local authorities to make decisions. Okay, on caution for whenever they come into patients, stuff like that, and medical, medical facilities, and with that kind of historical data about the age difference and which is more vulnerable than the other.
Exactly.
What I'm saying, yeah, that's what I call a very informed decision. Now, in part of out of your executive summary, I saw the part that says, based on statistical evidence, the vaccine did not stop the spread of the COVID-19.
That is correct.
Virus.
John Hopkins and all of them approved that. See, that's why I was so comfortable with putting my paper out, because some of the most notary people in the world had already made those statements. Denmark and Spain already made a similar statement. So mine is just confirming. Based on what I did is took South Carolina little data, just this little state,
right,
and prove what is going on around the globe with this behavior of this virus. And that's why I felt so comfortable with my paper. It just confirms what they have done already, what they have proven already.
So I'm gonna read that again. Based on statistical evidence, the vaccine did not stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Now, was this? So how did they take this after that was concluded in statistically?
See, what happened, Edward? Unfortunate. We got bogged down in politics with this COVID thing. People died.
That's where I'm getting to. Yeah.
And people made assumptions and went down a path. And now the data is out, but they don't want to correct it. I was taught that if you make a mistake, you just admit it and try to move forward. Right. So that is really what is happening now. Because when you look at the data, again, I come back to DHIC because everything in my report is DHIC data. That's their data. That's what I use. And what it shows is that from the data, you can't discern whether it was the vaccine that caused us to cause people not to get as sick. So you still have the virus out there.
Right.
People just don't get sick. People don't even know they have it unless they get tested probably. And whether there was immunity, a herd immunity that has built up that caused it to go, the death rate and hospitalizations to go down, particularly if people going on ventilators, or was it the vaccine? Because they both came out about the it takes a while for the herd immunity to work.
Yeah.
In back in January, February of 2020, was it 2020 or 2021? I looked at a bunch of data then. Just as the vaccine was coming out, the COVID cases and death fell like a rock. It was already on the way down, stochastic big time, because there was nothing. There's no objective way to know why it went down. It was on the way down at the same time they implemented the vaccine. As more and more people took the vaccine, so they said, "Oh, we got it," because I thought so at that point. After a while. But then it popped up again, even with the vaccine and all the masks in the world. Okay. But what we do see is that people don't get as sick and they're not dying. Is that from herd immunity, or is that from the vaccine, or a combination of both? Now, there are some people at Johns Hopkins and other places believe it's more the herd immunity that has gotten us down where people are not dying and getting as sick. And for example, as a living witness to this virus, I know you can have variations, but I was fully vaccinated, and I still ended up in the hospital with COVID. I was just a case of what it did not stop the spread.
Right.
Even though I got very sick enough to go to the hospital, a lot of other people, my wife had it also. She was vaccinated, fully vaccinated, but she didn't go to the hospital. She didn't have to even see a doctor. It just measured that she was COVID positive. So basically, the vaccine did not stop. It does not stop the spread of COVID. And there's good data from the South Carolina data that the mask is not, a cloth mask does not stop the spread of COVID. This is confirmed with Johns Hopkins and other places. What it is, CDC is the one that carries the ball, and so CDC will ignore whatever they want to ignore. They know all these things. They have the same data. I looked at some of the same data they had back in when this thing was taking an avalanche type of fall, just as the vaccine was coming out. And it's okay, we got it, but it's a stochastic behavior, and we still don't quite understand. It could spread again. We don't know.
You know, it looks like a lot of hard work you put into this.
Yeah.
To this report here, and it seemed to me that the recipients of the report would be organizations that really need that type of statistics to help them either make informed decisions or give them directions in supporting their cause. If not supporting their cause, give them direction on where they should go, and so forth. Do you find that to be quite receptive that way?
Yeah. What happens? People tend to resist things that don't fit a narrative of what they believe. They will not believe data. They will say, "Well, that's not what I see." And the mask is a case in point. For example, in Horry County, you go to, I see more African Americans or blacks wearing masks than any other. But statistically, we have a higher rate of COVID cases in Horry County than, say, white. I used to follow the model from DHIC
Right.
compared to white because we are a larger population per 100,000. Remember, everything has to be done per 100,000 in order to have the equivalent measurement. So that's why you see throughout my paper per 100,000. That way you're measuring apples and apples. Now in Horry County, even though African Americans have the higher rate of cases, but statistical, our death rate is lower than the Caucasian rate in Horry County from COVID. So we have a higher case, but had a higher case than Caucasians, but a lower death rate than Caucasians in Horry County.
I didn't see that in your executive summary, then, but maybe
it may be in there. I think it's in there someplace, or it might be throughout. It might be in the big summary in the back.
Okay, but in one case, you said there's no difference in the statistical death rate of Black and white residents in South Carolina as a whole.
As a whole, South Carolina as a whole. Now, when you narrow it down, say to Horry County
and Georgetown County.
And Georgetown County, then you start to see that difference. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it says there's no difference. You're saying
there's statistical no difference. As a whole, the state as a whole.
Okay.
Now remember that say Horry County, Georgetown County, they're just subsets of South Carolina as a whole. So you put a subset out there, it might be a little bit different because you talk about a much smaller population of that that subset. And what each one even if you look at the age bracket, you're looking at the population of people, say between 49 and 64 or whatever. You have to look at that particular populations of people in order to get a good measurement of that. Or you're looking at children between 5 and 11 or 5 and 10. You have to look at that particular population in order to compare apples to apples. So yeah, the South Carolina overall, and then when you narrow it down, just pull out that subset and examine that. And that's what I saw with the blacks in Horry County, just that county, looking at the populations of blacks in Horry County, population of whites in Horry County, and looking at the number of deaths. Blacks are faring better in that respect, statistically, which is scientifically, yeah.
So you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what kind of confidence did you have in the vaccination, or did that play a role in the in compiling these statistics?
It's very hard, and even that's what the folks at Johns Hopkins and other places say. It's very hard to discern which one has driven it down, because they both are happening simultaneously. In my opinion, just looking at the math, I've been following this thing for 3 years now. I would almost argue that just from a mathematical, not a medic, I'm not a medical person, I'm a mathematician. From that perspective, I would think herd immunity was because it's so stable now, it's not bouncing.
Yeah.
And that's why in some of those charts, unfortunately, they're too small, but I can get larger ones at some point. I overlaid, say, the vaccination right over the death rate, even though I had to use different axes. But you could see there's just no correlation. They're bouncing all over the place. And statistically, there's just no correlation between vaccination cases and deaths. No correlation.
So I didn't want to hold you to that.
No.
So in conclusion, about your confidence in the vaccine, you don't think it's what it played a major.
Oh no, I don't.
Would you have treated it as a flu, as the regular flu? I mean, I've seen we had a strong flu virus a few years back, a number of years back, and it was killing quite a number of people, I believe.
Right.
So there's no comparison there.
Yeah. See, what happened with the COVID? I think what really scared us all to death is there were so many people dying rather quickly as compared with the flu, as we know the flu from our experience. Now,
Right.
to get back to the question about the vaccine and the herd immunity, I don't. You can't discern that from the data. But
Right, okay.
just looking at the data based on my own experience of following this data for 3 years,
Right.
I tend to want to, as a non-medical person, but as a math person, want to tend to say that herd immunity may have played at least a equal part, because there are a lot of data now from researchers that once you have the COVID virus and you get over it, your immunity is better than the shot or the vaccine. It's stronger.
That's been proven.
That is still coming out and it's evolving, but that is what the scientists are finding out. Yeah.
Oh, so they've concluded that, or they're just still in the process of.
It's not. See, it's one of those, like science is. It's always evolving from some of the data that they're seeing at these major research folks. They believe that the immunity from that you build up in the body, that natural immunity, is better than a vaccine. In other words, they say if a person say I've had COVID already, that person should not be forced to take a vaccine, even though they do. It's like a brute force, and I mentioned that in my paper, a brute force solution that we have kind of applied to the virus, because we didn't know what was going on at the time. And people were dying. People were actually literally dying, friends and relatives and others, and it scared everybody to death. But now we have a much better handle on it in terms of looking at how it is spread.
Yeah. So I assume you have high confidence in data from Johns Hopkins, which is a quite reputable.
Yeah, I do. I followed
research.
Them, and I think what I noticed with them is that they were looking at herd immunity, and they was looking at the data straight up, what it caused. They were not trying to play with it. You can play with data as you
Right.
would, but if you don't do that, even though it may not fit your agenda, you really should come out and say what it is.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the vaccine has been proven over and over, it doesn't stop the spread, and then also the mask doesn't stop it either. Matter of fact, the CDC will not even do a randomized study on the mask, because they're afraid it might not come out to what they are telling people. If they do study, it might tell them, CDC, that the mask doesn't stop it. These cloth masks now, not the
Right.
They don't want to hear that.
They don't want to hear that.
So best way to do it is don't do a study.
Right. Yeah, you're right about that. Now, I also noticed in your executive summary, which a good executive summary, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. The older people, 65 or older, that where you had it charted, experience substantially higher death rates from COVID-19 than younger people, which you've said before.
Right.
But
Yes.
on average, a person 65 or older living in South Carolina, Horry County or Georgetown County, has died from COVID-19 at a rate of 17
17
times
of
the rate
another
of
age group. Yeah, I picked the age group. I don't.
18 to 19.
Yeah,
18 to 49. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's about 17 times. Yes.
17 times.
Hmm.
And those are hard numbers that you got.
Yes.
That not statistical numbers. These are just
No,
hard
those
numbers.
are hard numbers.
Those are
Yeah,
hard
those are hard
numbers.
numbers from the from
DHEC.
DHIC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, purpose of major, even though DHIC sent all their numbers to CDC and other places, but I wanted to use DHIC numbers so I could reference them,
Yeah,
not someone
right.
else, because they
Right.
have the most update and most accurate numbers. When they update, DHICers get all the updates. I don't know if CDC would get an update that's 2 months old or not. Okay, so that's why I stayed with DHIC numbers, and it gives more credibility that this is ours, this is our data.
Right.
Here in South Carolina, not some other people data, even though the other people data would be data that we sent to them and so forth. But it's an alarming rate at which older people die.
Yeah.
And as I pointed out in one of those lines in the summary, if you look at, I think it was around 65 or older, somewhere along there, the COVID cases on average were higher with the age group below them cases now. So it's just an indication that COVID is still out there. It's just that we don't see all the deaths that we did see. So again, even though they die at this 17x rate,
Right.
they have a lower on average now. You got it on this case on average than the younger people.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I know you've kind of restricted these to the study to Horry County and Georgetown. Was there any interest of you to venture out to go to other counties and state of South Carolina?
No. Well, I figured what I did is because it's you can see how labor intensive that is.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
And I figure, look, I figure if you gotten that far, you might as well go on and do some more in other states of South Carolina.
Yeah, and DHIC does not make it easy for you to get all those detailed data, like the weekly COVID cases. I had to go back and do a kind of a re-engineering or highlighted their charts, looking over it to get it, because those guys will not give you a spreadsheet because they don't. Well, what a lot of these places, they don't want people like me and others to get hold of that data so easily, because I'll write what it is. I have no agenda. Okay.
Right.
So I'm going to let the data take me like a seeing eye dog. A guide is going to go wherever it falls. Yeah.
But by law, they got to make that data public, right? I mean, so
yeah, they put it in those charts, but it make it hard to get. It's not as easy. It's not as easy as getting an Excel spreadsheet, because I have never gotten an Excel spreadsheet from them. They have dashboards and stuff there, but again, that's not easy to maneuver. You'd have to cut and paste to get that into a Excel sheet.
Right.
I had to do. Yeah, I did that. That's why I used South Carolina and not as Horry County, Georgetown. And South Carolina as a whole gives you a picture, even though the counties may vary.
Right.
Significant, and I'm always interested in Horry County and Georgetown, because
I think you'd be adding more silver and gold to your report. I know it's time consuming and it's rather arduous in terms of labor intensive. I'm sure, right?
Right.
But if you had all the counties, which there are like 46 counties in in South Carolina, I believe. Then that would really be something.
Yeah, that's something I'll think about, because you make a very valid point there. Yeah, yeah, to the 46 counties.
Yeah, but look, I'm not taking anything away from the Horry County and Georgetown
No,
County,
I got
which
you, brother.
was what you've done, okay?
Yeah.
Which is what you've done. That encompasses a lot. These are the two. Well, one is the biggest county in South Carolina, and you know, Georgetown not terribly far behind, but Horry County is. And if you were to pick one, that would and you really did. That's the one to pick, which is
Right, correct.
the
Correct.
largest county. And I was just bringing it up because you know, that would give it the as a whole
Yeah.
much more of a whole
Yes.
to say. And it probably, my guess is that statistical numbers would probably be almost minuscule. So some of these counties, maybe a great majority of them, to tell you the truth. But you know, the statistical, not the value of it, but the numbers themselves would be kind of minuscule, and sometimes it gives you an impression you might not want to count them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even some of the death rates in Georgetown County were so small in recent weeks or months that I don't even know if they were sending them in or what, but I had to scurry to try to find those. But yeah, looking at the counties, there's something, you know, all 46, because I have looked at all 46 in terms of education scores a couple of years ago. All 46, well, it's more than 46. I looked at every school district in South Carolina, and just did a comparative analysis to see how they stack up against each other. That was before the pandemic.
Right. So there's some questions in the comment section over there that we're going to get put up on the screen. One is from Miss Fuller, Priscilla Fuller, who's asking, are we setting people up for problems with the confusion regarding the taking of vaccines?
Well, I would, if I had to recommend to people, I would tell them to follow whatever their primary care provider suggests. You never want to get between that.
So,
but I wouldn't wear a mask if that was the case. But if a primary provider said wear a mask, I would say, you know, wear a mask. But I see people wearing masks, and I say to myself, it's too bad that they don't know that it's doing nothing. It's doing absolutely nothing. They don't think it's doing anything. And looking at the data,
right,
from that I got from South Carolina, and even looking at some of the other places in the past, it's always was suspicious of the mask from looking at the data. When I first started looking at this data 3 years ago, because they were masked up and buckled down, and the cases were still going up, say in New York and some of the surrounding counties that I looked at 2 years ago.
So that was your basic driving force for wanting to do this statistical analysis. The fact that you had just a small amount of doubts, or you had some concerns about the values that were being thrown out there by DHEC and everybody, or
yeah.
What?
One thing about DHEC, I had agreed with DHEC 2 years ago, whenever the vaccine first came out, the medical person there, in terms of if we could just all get, I thought too that the vaccine was going to really do the job. And so I was a proponent. I wrote a piece, penned a piece in the Horry newspaper, Horry Independent, to that effect, encouraging people to get vaccinated. But then since then, I realized that I was just as wrong as, you know, I was following the data and what people were saying at that point, thinking that it was. But then when you come forward looking at the data, you said, no, it didn't do it. The key thing is it perhaps, again, we may never know whether it was the herd immunity or the vaccine, but it stopped people from dying at the rate we were. So
yeah, well,
that is a huge plus.
Right. That's been pretty evident. That's been pretty evident. You know, so what? There's another question in the comment section there from the young lady, Miss Joella McQueen, says, Good evening. How much funding has been given in Horry County from the federal government to promote the need for the vaccines over the years?
I don't have that number. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think that though it was should have been because they had a lot of money out there, and they still have a lot of money. They have not spent floating around out there. So I would think South Carolina must have gotten their fair share.
Yeah, I forgot what the federal government called that title of money that when they were sending it out, something they called it something. And I forgot what it was, but anyway, it was quite a bit of money. It was some millions and millions of dollars.
That's right.
It wasn't the Recovery Act. It wasn't part of that.
No.
It was something else. But so you were so I think this is your second report, the third report you came out with.
I think about the third one. This would be the third one I did. I did one for a group of pastors. It wasn't on here, but it was a group of pastors early on during the height of the pandemic. But I think this is second or third. I can't remember now. Yeah.
Well,
but I did a lot of interim releases, just one pages over the course of the 3 years on COVID, and I start to see a lot of things that just was not adding up after we started the vaccine, because I had a lot of faith in the vaccine, and again, we should really be thankful for it, because I think it saved lives along with the herd immunity, the two of them together. Right. I think save lives.
Yeah. Well, I guess looking at your statistics, we have to use that to get a better informed decision
yes.
on that. And I wanted to, if you can revert to your statement you made a few minutes ago regarding the study you did for pastors, for a group of pastors, you said.
Yeah,
I find that interesting.
COVID. It was about 2 years ago, maybe. I don't remember. And I looked at what it is. I looked around in Horry. That was focused, I think, on Horry County, and I was looking at different zip codes where the highest rate of COVID and zip codes and so forth and so on, looking at the correlation between primarily white and black in various zip codes. I'd have to pull it up, but I think it was a group of pastors. I remember Reverend J.R. Matthew and who else was it? Wallace Evans, Reverend Evans, and some others.
Yeah. I find it interesting, but I find it encouraging that that piqued their interest in that, in those statistics, so that they can have better informed decisions to inform their congregations.
Exactly.
Okay, I find that, and I'm encouraged by that. That they are kind of like ahead of the curve, so to speak, or they're trying to get ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Now that is something that would benefit the whole state if you had done a statewide
with all.
That would. I can imagine.
Right. It's a something. Yeah, that's something, because see, they have all the different counties on as you notice out on the DHIC. DHIC has a lot of interactive charts, and there's just a lot of beautiful charts. But what I have in a report like this, you have static charts. You just overlay something so a person can just stare at it.
Right.
Not beautiful charts, just basic charts on a white background.
Some charts that everybody can understand.
That's what I tried to do. Yeah, even though they may not understand the logarithm scale and all of that, but they can kind of see. It's like a guide or that a person can see and say, yeah, this looks like this. Like looking at the cases of babies less than 5 years old and so forth. Yeah, they have cases, but nobody's dying.
Right.
Is okay. Right. So why are you jabbing them? That would be a question. Okay, why are you giving these kids these the chances of them passing from COVID is down underneath the ground almost. It's nothing. But anyway, that what I consider is a brute force solution, a brute force policy, and that's what we started off with about 2-3 years ago. Whenever this thing hit, and nobody want to let up on it, and which I think is sad.
Well, so how far you think that we've gotten past all of this now? I mean, you see us down the road. Do you see things, and especially in light of the fact that, well, not the fact, but in light of the so the analysis that came out that said that, or the medical report that came out and said that the virus is more prone in the in cold weather than warm weather. If that's what you heard, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and it's getting warmer, especially down in South Carolina. I mean, and well, South Carolina as a whole, but Horry County. I mean, we've had some pretty warm weather here for the past
Absolutely.
week or two.
Yes.
And I don't, they don't see a cold front coming anytime soon. But in light of all that, what do you see down the road that maybe DHEC should consider, or for implementing any new procedures? Still do encourage the masks?
No, I would, based on the data, I would get rid of the mask. I would not encourage the mask. Maybe around an older person who's suffering from some sort of a compromising illness or something, cancer, diabetes or something like that, just in case. That would be a person who is already kind of sick. Okay, so if you're going to be in close contact, say as a caretaker or something for a person like that, it may be a chance that if you use the mask, you might prevent something. But just globally, as a whole, I wouldn't wear a mask. If I were a pastor, I would tell all my parishioners to get rid of those masks. Take them off. Don't wear them anymore. Unless, again, you are an older person and you might, be going through chemotherapy or something like that.
Well, suppose a person has diabetes or severe high blood pressure or whatever. Is that a compromising of the immune system is already compromised?
It depends on the individual. How, like, I have high blood pressure, but I'm a healthy high blood pressure individual, so I would not be under that category.
All right. Well, let's just say diabetes. Diabetes is
kind of a different animal. For persons that are under good control, got the diabetes and stuff under control, I would think, like, say my wife, she has diabetes, but it's under good control, so she doesn't wear a mask or any of that type of stuff. She's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Now, and the reason why I asked that, because your body is really the immune system is kind of down. It's being compromised when you have when you have the disease, whether you have it under control or not, but you have it.
Yeah, it's again, I think it's the individual where you wouldn't be able to blanket every individual. As I say, my wife is a diabetic, but a healthy diabetic, so her immune system is probably much better than another person who might have diabetes, and it's not as under control as hers, and so forth. And then she's a medical, she's a nurse practitioner, so she has she knows the score with diabetes. She treats a lot of diabetic patients and so forth. Yeah, but again, if a person is the older people, I would, if I had to recommend, I would tell them to kind of follow the guidance of their primary care provider. Yeah. Ask them a question. Say, should I wear a mask all the time or whatever? Because you see, when you look around and see people out in the middle of the yard on a lawnmower wearing a mask, either they've been kind of scared to death or whatever, because they're out, not even around anybody, but they're wearing the mask. And I just think one day maybe we will eventually kind of get people to get away from it. And I think if CDC, in my own opinion, and they have the same data and they know what they're doing in terms of the data, they could come out tomorrow and tell people to If they feel better wearing it, let them wear it. Never tell somebody they can't wear it. However, don't mandate it. If they look and they have the data, that's what really sometimes is just is I don't know. They have the data. They see the same data that I had in my charts. They have that same data.
You know, I get the feeling that even if CDC came out tomorrow and said, y'all can stop wearing masks now, and we feel that you're not going to get it, you still, I think you may have a majority, not even majority, a significant number of people who will not stop.
They will
wearing
not
masks.
stop. They will. I agree
Yeah.
with you 1,000%. They will
Right.
not stop.
They'll stop whenever they want to stop, and you know that's their prerogative. Yeah, that I just feel that that's the way it would go.
And I think in this whole thing, one of the biggest tragedies that I notice is I don't know if the schools is making these babies, these kids wear masks, and the data points out none of them died from it. They had COVID, but the small percentage of almost zero of these elementary grade children are dying from COVID or even going to the hospital, and yet we jab them and put them in those masks. And what it costs in terms of the learning, the cost that we have paid, it just seems so wrong on many levels of what we have done to our to society.
Well, you know, in addition to your statistics this evening, you opinionize verbally on on a lot of things that uh, may have impacted some people's decision and may not. But it's your right to do that.
Yeah, I think the another thing is I think the media should really do better job in getting some of the information out, the more positive information, and we should stop scaring young people to death or scaring people to death. Uh, that's when I say scaring to death, this thing scared people big time when it was in full swing. But I think now it is down. Something else could come up, yes, but we don't know what that will be.
So I did not read in your executive summary about, but I did ask you about this earlier about the confidence level of the vaccine itself, and not the quality of it, but the magnitude of its effectiveness, um, and the time frame that it took to develop the vaccine. Long time ago, I say 20 or 30 years ago, when you talk about you're going to develop a vaccine for something, you're talking about years and years and years. Okay. In this case, it was like months.
Yes.
That's like months. And I know, and I do believe in technology, new technology, what they can do, and may have the advanced technology. Do you think that was too quick?
I don't think. I think it was. It gave us some level of peace of mind that they got it out there,
Right,
and and then once we discovered that it not stopping the spread of it, and the biggest thing we see is that it people is not dying as much from it.
as
Not
they thought.
knowing what is going to happen 15, 20 years from now, the effect of it, the negative
Right.
effect. Okay. I'm from Vietnam. Well, not from Vietnam. Served in Vietnam, and I know all about Agent Orange. They didn't know about the lethal, the problems that it would cause. It is now into some of the people, children, some of the GIs, grandchildren are being born with some deformity because of Agent Orange. So we
Really?
didn't know what the long term effect that was going to be. We don't know what the long term effect of all this jabbing of millions of people, these babies, we don't know.
So you've seen data regarding that long-term effect of the Agent Orange with grandchildren?
Oh yeah. There's some cases of GIs who has it had it exposed to it, and matter of fact, there was one GI soldier. I think his daughter was born with only one kidney, it's those type things. They're
So
fine.
they attribute that to Agent Orange
Yeah.
through the
Yep.
genealogy, right?
Those are the type of things that DOD continue to want to squash. They finally admitted, as you know, years later, that Agent Orange was real and was causing cancer and so forth. And but I don't. They push back on this next generation of people being affected. But there enough information out there that is there. I don't know what the status of DOD in terms of trying to help these people, but it's there. Yeah, Agent Orange was a bad thing that will haunt people for
For
a
a
long.
long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. That should have been our topic tonight.
But Agent Orange.
Yeah, man. I'm anxious to find out some research on that, and I have seen some, if not, if I don't know if it's effects or not, but was told by people who were in Vietnam, okay, and they said that it was Agent Orange that caused them to be whatever they're being today,
Yes.
and the kind of defects that they have today.
Yes. Yes.
And that's another subject. But anyway, now look, Dave, I think it's always a pleasure to have you on our program. Man. You come with a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of statistics.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad to know that you're located locally right here in Little River.
No, actually, I live right in Conway.
Oh, you live in Conway, but
Yeah.
you're from Little River.
Actually, I'm from Long's area, Red Bluff area.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, people like
That's
that
how I
should
was
be,
born. Yeah.
huh? Yeah, but they should be great, gracious to know that they had somebody of value like that right in the Long's area. But now you're in Conway, so we right in Conway now. So
Right. Yeah. Outskirts of Conway. I live in the county of Conway, about 6 miles out.
yeah. Well, that's good. Hey, look, that's close enough. Okay.
Right.
That's close enough to know. And hopefully, I think it'd be wise for people to call on you to do some statistical data, especially in the area of something like this.
Yes, I would certainly be happy. And again, I do a lot of this. I don't look for a lot of money. If someone give me a stipend for things, that's fine. But I find that if God give you kind of a gift and you can do it to help people or help society, then you do it. Every one of us have some sort of a gift that we
Absolutely.
everyone, okay,
Absolutely.
and so you simply use it.
That's right. Just use it
Hmm.
to help others.
To help others.
To help others.
To help others. Yes.
And I certainly appreciate you doing that. And I look at you as that now, since you've explained a lot of things
Oh, thank you.
about that. So so look, until the next time, Dave. And for everybody, please view at the bottom of the screen for if you wanted to contact Mr. Wilson. There's your website.
Yeah, that's the website with the whole entire report. Please take a look at it, read it. At least read page 4. That's the executive summary. It pretty much tells you everything there. And as I told Edwin in the beginning, there's nothing brand new there per se. It was just that I took South Carolina data and pretty much proved what John Hopkins and other folks have been saying.
So look, don't be an influence for you to do the whole statewide. Now I don't want to be the guy to do that.
You kind of put a bug in my head, so we'll let it see what happens to the bug.
What happened to the bug? Look, I bet that bug might be a got diamond in the rough, man. You never know.
You never know.
You never know. Anyway, so look, Dave, again, there's another McQueen that says, "Thank you, sir."
You're most welcome. Most welcome.
Exactly.
And thank you for having me. I was very happy to share this with people.
Well,
and, so
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, make them think about some of the things that are going on with the COVID. Yeah.
Okay, so Dave, you be good, and God bless and until I'm going to say until the next time, because we're going to have you give me these kind of statistics, man. And graphically, I know you had some graphics this time. I'd like to alert the audience
Right.
of that.
Yeah.
You had some
What
graphics
I
this
do
time.
is I didn't have them on a big enough
Right.
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So I kind of, you kind of learn. I learned this
Right.
time that okay, you put it on a bigger PowerPoint. So that's
We'll advise the people that this is like Zoom, but it's not Zoom. Zoom is confined to the people who are invited,
Gotcha.
I believe, stuff like that. And you're invited up to a certain number.
Yes,
We got to assume, since we're on Facebook and our website, that we're going to hundreds of thousands of people. We just got to assume that. Okay. If not, they're looking at it now. They look at it since it remains up on our website. You can look at it at a later date. Okay, so there you have that. Okay.
Cool.
All right. So
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dave.
And thank you, and good night. Have a blessed evening.
God bless.
Yes.
Thank you for watching the World